The playoff stuff is interesting because, yeah, like I said, the sample is different. Like a lot of these stats, they do validate and they do describe how good these guys are. But I think that like coming up against different types of defenses, coming up against, the real challenge, which is can you beat like a flexible defensive team in a playoff series? That's not up to these guys solely to overcome. Like a lot of their team stuff factors into it. But I don't know. It does seem like people let the playoffs loom over the discussion a little bit, right? And I guess it's tied to the fatigue thing there where we're like, I feel like this is the season where Jokic kind of, even though like statistically it's in his favor, I like the thing that Matt Moore said the other day on Twitter about like, if we had an offensive player of the year, I think it's undoubtedly Jokic. I don't think there's any question about that, but what do you think about that? What do you think about the playoffs and the sort of malaise hanging over the discussion?
Well, I think it brings up the dependency thing. And I also the MVP thing always makes me ask the question of like, should you want to win MVP? Because historically, if you win the MVP, you are highly, highly unlikely to win the title that year. I haven't checked that. I don't remember what the number is now, but I think it's like 16 of the last like 21 or 22 MVP winners have not won the title. Because if you win MVP, it usually means that your team is in a position where they really, really need you. And that kind of lends itself to being scouted out of the playoffs because it's your style is probably predictable. And once they key in on you and shut you down or let you score, whatever the method is we've talked about this a ton. You need a lot to win the title now. It's just you need a lot of offensive talent. You usually at this point, you need like 2 MVP level guys to get there. So,
which is bonkers. Yeah. We've seen it happen. I mean, like the Curry seasons, obviously, where he did it. And we also did the thing, we talked about
Curry is like one of the latest like real exceptions to this. Curry and Giannis, like that's been pretty much it. And, everyone else is out and, knocked out early land. And then people start talking about how you're overrated because like you won the MVP but didn't win the title. And it's like, well, it's more of a flaw of how we define MVP than it is anything else.
Yeah, we're always trying to balance this, like celebrating the capacity for an individual versus like dinging people for like we did that. I mean, LeBron obviously got one of the famous ones that we didn't say specifically because we didn't tediously go through the history of this award and like snubs and things. But one of the notable ones I think that like kind of illustrates the parameters of this was the 2011 Derrick Rose, which he's, the youngest MVP maybe in history. I don't know. He was super young. LeBron didn't win it that year because LeBron was on it. But he was rewarded on those seasons. Like I've always talked about some of the biggest like Helios seasons of all time. LeBron in 08, 09, 09, 10. You can even go back. We're talking about some of the craziest output seasons ever. We balance the MVP award between, rewarding the best player and the best team. But then we also are just like, well, you didn't get it done, so you're not going to. It's just this odd balance, where it's like, what is value showing us like what you're capable of on any given night, or is value fitting within a winning construct? I think I'm more the latter. Like I think I'm more the latter, and it's like we saw Giannis go up against this. I don't know. It just seems like we're always trying to balance those two things because in like 2011, LeBron was the best player in the world at that point, but he was with other stars and winning. Was he less valuable because he didn't score as much or assist as much?
I think you're really underplaying what the narrative was that year, which was fuck LeBron James for going to Miami. Like I don't think the team stuff really mattered, and it became a really good excuse for why he didn't deserve to be the MVP that year. But I think we kind of pre-constructed that LeBron was not going to be the MVP that year. And then Derrick Rose that year, just a master of PR in training camp says, why not? Why can't I be the MVP of this league? And everyone is like, wow, that's adorable.
Profound. Yeah.
Adorable. And then he comes out of the game and he's just on fire. He's on fire until basically late December that year. I was a Bulls fan, so I remember this very well. He improved his 3-point shot to the point where at one point in that year he was shooting 42% from 3, which if you remember how Derrick Rose drove to the lane, You do not want that man to be able to shoot 42% from 3 at the same time. Then, this is a complete digression, by the way. They play against the Clippers, and he misses 2 free throws, or he misses a free throw. At this point, he's only like a 72% free throw shooter or something, right? And he's completely just down on himself. He can't believe he missed these free throws, too. That would have sent the game to overtime. He starts maniacally working on his free throw shot, and his 3-point shot just goes completely haywire after that. And I thought that was just a really interesting moment in terms of development and trying to work on multiple things at the same time, because it was just uncanny the way that one followed the other. And I think like I'd rather would have had him be a great 3-point shooter, especially with the injuries that he had later on. But anyway, I digress majorly there. Kyle, get us back on track.
Well, I'd love to sit here and talk
podcast.
about your disappointment about Derrick Rose and everything. And well, that's another special series coming soon. But no, I mean, like we're always, I don't know. I just think it's interesting how I
mean, the Derrick Rose disappointment hit just incredible lows. But
yeah, it's been a ride. But I mean, that was a good Bulls team, to be fair. And we're talking about teams that are competing and things like that. And it's like, I don't know. I'm always just kind of the question of like, what is value? Is value like? I think it is. I think it's like we are going to have to balance like the brilliance of the individual, performance. And I think you made an excellent example here of like one of the like crux points of this was the Kawhi situation when we were we were busy debating. Talk a little bit about that. We were debating Russ and Harden.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kawhi is fitting into this winning thing, which is the point. It has to be the point, because if we're going to criticize you about not winning, then why would we not value it in our thinking to begin with? What the fuck's going on here? I'm lost.
I don't know, Kyle. I think that year was just an excellent example, and it reminds me of this year where you have this MVP race between Embiid and Jokic, which has become a proxy war for everyone. It's a proxy war if you're just talking about basketball. It's a proxy war if you're talking about race, if you're talking about like stylistic differences. It has just been a really ugly, weird MVP debate where people are talking about everything except for basketball.
Yeah, the Kawhi thing is interesting. I guess just balancing... we have to balance it. That's the reality. We have to balance that thing. I guess that segues to Giannis. We haven't talked about him as much. It's a team that's well built. It's a team that has a specific philosophy. It's built around specific strengths, and that's all a part of the equation here. We praised the virtues of their defense last week. Giannis is probably the best. There's a question. I mean, like he's the most switchable of these three guys. He's, is he necessarily? Then you start to like, have the question of like weighing like quality rim protection versus like switchability and like tough assignment things. He's the tough assignment taker of these three. Giannis
is the best defender of this group, with all due respect to Joel Embiid's rim protection, which has not really been as consistent as it could be in previous years. Is that
by choice, or is it just by or that's what I'm saying is like, because it seems like he saves himself a little bit. That's another bullet point here is availability. Sure. Availability matters in this. And it's like,
and Giannis actually has played the least amount of games out of these guys as well when you talk about the availability point. But on the defense point, I don't think it's particularly close. In a league where, by the way, switchability and versatility matters a ton, and he's also still an excellent rim protector, and he does, we talked about last week, do the two places at once thing better than any of these guys. We talked about field goal differential a lot last week. Giannis's field goal differential is minus 6.9. Which is by far the highest amongst anybody who has a reason. Yeah, thank you. Was by far the highest amongst anybody who has had a reasonable amount of people try to score on them. Which, by the way, barely even happens with Giannis anymore. Like I was digging into the Embiid versus Jokic defensive numbers, which we actually didn't really even get to. But like I think suffice it to say that Jokic is just not a good defender, and that should very much figure into this race. You cannot find a lot of Giannis isolation defense stats because that's just not something that people are trying very much these days.
That's a
It's
key
just-
part of these types of stats is, people will like look at them side by side and forget the part of the data that's not there, which is
Right.
some guys are so good they get avoided because they're good. That's how it works.